Jack Reacher steps off a bus in Redstone, a small town hiding a dark secret. When he saves a waitress from thugs, he's thrust into a deadly battle against Victor Kane, a ruthless kingpin, and his enforcer, Loyalty. From diner brawls to quarry, ambushes, Reacher uncovers a global conspiracy of drugs, guns, and power. Hunted by bounty hunters, betrayed by traps, and armed with only his fists and wits, Reacher teams up with a grizzled rail worker to stop a shipment that could destroy everything. In a dawn showdown, he faces Loyalty herself. But is the fight really over, or is something bigger waiting? Chapter 1. The shadow in the alley Jack Reacher stepped off the bus into a town that smelled of dust and trouble. The air was thick, the kind that sticks to your skin and makes you wish for a cold drink. The sun was low, painting the sky orange, and the streets were quiet, too quiet for a place this size. He slung his duffel bag over his shoulder, the only thing he owned besides the clothes on his back and a toothbrush in his pocket. No phone, no wallet, just cash and a knack for finding problems, or letting them find him. The town was called Redstone, a nowhere spot in the middle of nowhere, with cracked sidewalks and faded signs for businesses that probably died years ago. Reacher didn't care about the history. He was here because the bus stopped, and he had no place else to be. That's how he lived, drifting, moving, never staying long enough to get tied down. But something about Redstone felt off, like the air was holding its breath, waiting for a fight to break out. He walked down Main Street, boots crunching on gravel, eyes scanning the shadows. A diner glowed ahead, its neon sign buzzing like a dying bug. Maggie's Place, it read, promising coffee and pie. Reacher's stomach growled. He hadn't eaten since morning, just a gas station sandwich that tasted like regret. Pie sounded good. Coffee sounded better. He pushed through the door, bells jingling, and stepped inside. The diner was half empty, the kind of place where locals sit for hours, nursing coffee and grudges. A waitress, maybe 30, with tired eyes and a name tag that said Clara, looked up from wiping the counter. She gave him a quick once-over, not unfriendly, but cautious, like she'd seen too many strangers bring trouble. Reacher nodded, a small gesture that said he wasn't here to cause a scene. Not yet, anyway. Coffee, he said, sliding onto a stool at the counter. Black, and apple pie if it's fresh. Clara nodded, pouring coffee into a chipped mug. Pie's fresh this morning. You passing through? Something like that, Reacher said. He didn't do small talk, but he didn't mind it either. People talked, and sometimes they said things worth hearing. Clara set the pie down, a thick slice with a crust that looked like it could win a prize. He took a bite. It was good, sweet, tart, the kind of pie that makes you forget the world for a second. The door jingled again. Reacher didn't turn, but he felt the room shift, like the air got heavier. 2 guys walked in, big, broad-shouldered, with the kind of swagger that says they're used to getting their way. They wore leather jackets, jeans, and boots that clomped too loud on the floor. One had a scar across his cheek, the other a smirk that begged to be wiped off. They didn't sit. They stood scanning the diner like they owned it. Clara stiffened, her hand pausing on the coffee pot. The other customers, a trucker in a flannel shirt, an old guy reading a newspaper, kept their heads down, suddenly real interested in their plates. Reacher sipped his coffee, slow and calm, but his eyes flicked to the reflection in the chrome napkin holder. He saw the two guys move toward the counter, stopping a few feet from him. "Hey, Clara," Scarface said, voice low and mean. "You got our money." Clara's face tightened, but she kept her voice steady. "Told you, Eddie, I don't have it yet. Business is slow. I need more time." Eddie leaned forward, knuckles on the counter, close enough that Reacher could smell his cheap cologne. "Time's up, sweetheart. Boss don't like waiting. You know what happens when he gets mad?" Reacher took another sip of coffee. He didn't know Clara, didn't know Eddie, didn't know their story. But he knew this kind of scene. A small town, a bully, someone getting squeezed. It was always the same, just different faces. He set his mug down, quiet, and kept eating his pie. Tisner, his fight, not yet. The second guy, Smirk, laughed, a short, ugly sound. "Maybe we take the money another way, huh? That pretty face of yours could earn a lot." Clara's eyes flashed, but she didn't back down. "Get out, Tommy, both of you. I'm not scared of you." Eddie grabbed her wrist, fast, yanking her forward. The coffee pot wobbled, nearly tipping. "You should be," he said. That's when Reacher moved. He didn't plan it, didn't think it through. It was instinct, the kind that kicks in when you see something wrong and your body decides before your brain. He stood, all 6'5" of him, muscles hard from years of fighting and surviving. The diner went silent, like everyone stopped breathing at once. "Let her go," Reacher said. His voice was calm, almost soft, but it carried weight, like a storm cloud promising thunder. Eddie turned, still holding Clara's wrist, and sized Reacher up. He wasn't small, maybe 6'2", 200 pounds. But Reacher made him look like a kid playing tough. "Who the hell are you?" Eddie said, letting go of Clara and stepping closer. "Nobody," Reacher said. "Just a guy eating pie." Tommy laughed again, but it was nervous now, like he wasn't sure how this was gonna go. "Walk away, big man. This ain't your business." Reacher didn't move. He stood loose, hands at his sides, but anyone who knew fighting could see he was ready. Knees bent just a little, weight balanced, eyes locked on Eddie like a hawk on a mouse. "You're making it my business," he said. Eddie's face twisted, like he wasn't used to being challenged. He glanced at Tommy, then back at Reacher, and made a choice. Bad one. He swung, a fast right hook aimed at Reacher's jaw. Most guys would have ducked or flinched. Reacher didn't. He stepped inside the punch, caught Eddie's wrist mid-swing, and twisted hard. Eddie yelped, arm bending at a bad angle, and dropped to one knee. Tommy lunged, pulling a knife from his jacket, a cheap switchblade that gleamed under the diner's lights. Reacher saw it coming, saw the angle, the grip, the way Tommy's feet were too close together. He let go of Eddie, sidestepped, and grabbed Tommy's wrist with one hand, slamming it against the counter's edge. The knife clattered to the floor. Reacher drove his elbow into Tommy's nose, a quick, sharp hit. Blood sprayed, and Tommy staggered back, hands to his face, moaning. Eddie was back on his feet, reaching for something in his jacket. Probably a gun. Reacher didn't wait to find out. He grabbed Eddie's collar, yanked him forward, and headbutted him, forehead to nose. Eddie's eyes rolled back, and he crumpled like a cheap suit. The whole thing took maybe 10 seconds. The diner was dead quiet, except for Tommy's whimpering and the faint buzz of the neon sign. Clara stared, mouth open, coffee pot still in her hand. The trucker and the old guy looked up, wide-eyed, like they'd just seen a movie come to life. Reacher stepped back, breathing steady, checking for more threats. None came. He picked up the knife, snapped the blade off with his boot, and tossed the pieces behind the counter. Then he sat down, took a sip of coffee, and went back to his pie like nothing happened. Clara finally moved, setting the coffee pot down with a shaky hand. You okay?" she asked, like she wasn't sure who to worry about. "Fine," Reacher said, taking another bite of pie. "Good coffee." She blinked, then let out a small, nervous laugh. "Who are you?" "Nobody," Reacher said again. He nodded at Eddie and Tommy, still groaning on the floor. "They'll wake up soon. You got a phone. Call the cops." Clara hesitated, then shook her head. "Cops won't help. They're with him." "Him?" Reacher said, raising an eyebrow. She bit her lip, like she'd said too much. "Never mind. You should go. You don't know what you just stepped into." Reacher finished his pie, wiped his mouth with a napkin, and dropped a 10 on the counter. "Maybe I do," he said. He stood, grabbed his duffel, and headed for the door. But he stopped, glancing back at her. "You got a place to stay? Somewhere safe?" Clara nodded, but it wasn't convincing. "I'll be fine. Just watch your back, okay?" Reacher didn't answer. He pushed through the door, bells jingling, and stepped into the night. The air was cooler now, the town darker, but the feeling of trouble was stronger than ever. He walked down Main Street, boots echoing, until he reached an alley between a hardware store and a boarded-up bar. The shadows were deep here, the kind that hide things you don't want to see. He stopped, listening. A faint sound. Shoes on gravel, soft but deliberate. Someone was following him. Reacher didn't turn. He shifted his duffel to his left hand, freeing his right, and kept walking, slower now, drawing them in. The sound got closer, then stopped. He felt eyes on his back, like a predator sizing up prey. "Come out," Reacher said, voice low, carrying in the quiet. "I don't like games." No answer, just the wind whistling through the alley. Then a shadow moved, quick, from the corner of his eye. Reacher spun, dropping the duffel, and caught a glimpse of a figure. Tall, lean, dressed in black, face hidden by a hood. Not Eddie or Tommy. Someone new. Someone dangerous. The figure didn't speak. They raised a hand, and Reacher saw the glint of metal. A gun, suppressor attached, professional. No hesitation. The shot came, a soft hiss in the dark. Reacher was already moving, diving behind a dumpster as the bullet sparked off the brick wall where his head had been. He rolled, staying low, mind racing. The shooter was good, trained, patient, not some small-town thug. Reacher peeked out, saw the figure advancing, gun steady, scanning the shadows. No time to think. He grabbed a loose brick from the ground, waited for the shooter to step closer, and threw it hard, aiming for the chest. The brick hit, a dull thud. The shooter grunted, stumbling back, gun dipping. Reacher was on him in a second, closing the idigbu distance before the guy could recover. He grabbed the gun hand, twisted, and heard the snap of a wrist breaking. The shooter gasped, but didn't scream. Tough, disciplined. Reacher slammed a fist into the guy's jaw, dropping him to the ground, out cold. He stood, breathing hard, and checked the alley. No one else. He knelt, pulling the hood back. The shooter was a man, late 30s, clean-shaven, with a face that could belong to anyone. No ID, no wallet, just a burner phone and a spare clip for the gun. Professional, like Reacher thought. He pocketed the phone, left the gun, too much hassle, and dragged the guy behind the dumpster. He'd wake up in an hour, maybe less, but Reacher didn't plan to stick around. He grabbed his duffel and kept moving, sticking to the shadows now. Redstone wasn't just a town with a bully problem. It was a nest of something bigger, something meaner. Clara's words echoed in his head. They're with him! Whoever he was, he had muscle, money, and guys willing to kill a stranger just for stepping in. Reacher didn't know the whole story, but he knew enough. He'd poked a hornet's nest, and now it was buzzing. The alley opened to a side street, lined with old houses and flickering streetlights. Reacher stopped, listening again. No footsteps, no shadows, but the feeling of being watched didn't go away. He pulled the burner phone from his pocket, powered it on. One number in the call log, no name, dialed an hour ago. He memorized it, then smashed the phone under his boot. No point calling, not yet. He needed more pieces of the puzzle. A motel. Sign blinked in the distance, promising cheap rooms and no questions. Reacher headed that way, keeping his pace steady, his eyes sharp. He didn't know who was running Redstone, but he knew one thing. They'd just met their match. And he wasn't leaving until the fight was done. Chapter 2. A name from the past. Jack Reacher checked into the motel under a false name. John Smith. Simple. Forgettable. The clerk, a wiry guy with a lazy eye, didn't care. He took Reacher's cash, slid a key across the counter, and went back to watching a grainy TV. The room was what Reacher expected. Faded wallpaper, a lumpy bed, and a bathroom that smelled like mildew. He didn't plan to stay long, just enough to figure out what he'd stepped into and who wanted him dead. He dropped his duffel on the floor, locked the door, and wedged a chair under the knob. No one was sneaking in without a fight. He sat on, the bed springs creaking under his weight, and pulled out the burner phone's SIM card, turning it over in his fingers. The number he'd memorized was local, but that didn't mean much. Could be a thug, could be a boss, could be nobody. He'd find out soon enough. The motel was quiet, but Reacher's mind wasn't. Redstone was small, maybe 5,000 people, but it had a shadow over it, like a town hiding a secret. Clara's words kept circling back. They're with him. She hadn't said a name, but her fear was real, the kind that comes from knowing someone who can break you and get away with it. Reacher had seen it before. Small towns, big players, power that chokes everyone else. He didn't like it, never had. He lay back, hands behind his head, staring at the cracked ceiling. Sleep wasn't coming, not yet. His brain was working, piecing together the diner, the alley, the shooter. Eddie and Tommy were muscle, low level, the kind you send to scare a waitress. The shooter was different. Trained, silent, a pro. 2 layers of trouble, which meant someone at the top was pulling strings. someone with enough cash to hire a hitman and enough clout to own the cops. A name floated up, unbidden from years ago. Victor Kane. Reacher's eyes narrowed. Kane was a ghost from his army days, a military contractor who'd run black ops for profit, selling guns, drugs, anything that paid. Reacher had crossed him once, back in '98, when Kane tried to frame a unit for a deal gone bad. Reacher shut it down, left Kane with a busted jaw and a burned operation. Last he heard, Kane had vanished, maybe dead, maybe hiding. But guys like Kane don't stay gone. They slink back, meaner than ever. Could Kane be here? Redstone was the kind of place he'd like. Out of the way, easy to control. Reacher didn't have proof, just a gut feeling. And his gut was rarely wrong. He sat up, grabbed his jacket, and headed out. Sitting still wasn't his style. If Kane was in Redstone, Reacher would find him. If not, he'd find whoever was making Clara shake. The night was cold. The streets empty, except for a stray dog sniffing a trash can. Reacher walked, sticking to the edges of the streetlights, his boots soft on the pavement. He headed back toward Main Street, toward the diner. Clara knew more than she'd said. Time to ask her what. The diner's neon was still buzzing, but the place looked closed, windows dark, except for a faint glow in the back. Reacher circled around, finding a side door by the dumpster. He knocked, light but firm. No answer. He knocked again, louder. A shadow moved inside, then the door cracked, open, and Clara's face appeared pale and tense. "You," she said, eyes wide. "What are you doing here?" "Need to talk," Reacher said. "Let me in." She hesitated, glancing over her shoulder, then opened the door wider. "Make it quick. I'm closing up." Inside, the diner smelled of coffee and grease, the counter still damp from a mop. Clara locked the door behind him, her hands shaky. She wasn't just tired now. She was scared, the kind of scared that makes you jump at shadows. "What happened after I left?" Reacher asked, keeping his voice low. Clara crossed her arms, leaning against the counter. Cops came. Not real cops, just deputies who work for him. They took Eddie and Tommy, didn't ask questions, didn't even look at me, like it never happened. "Him," Reacher said. "You keep saying that. Who is he?" She looked away, chewing her lip. "You don't get it. You don't just say his name. Not here. Try me," Reacher said, stepping closer, not threatening but firm. "I'm not leaving till I know." Clara's eyes flicked to the door, then back to him. She took a breath, like she was diving into deep water. "His name's Kane, Victor Kane. Runs everything in Redstone, bars, drugs, even the mayor's office. Nobody crosses him. Nobody." Reacher's jaw tightened. There it was. Kane. The name hit like a punch, but he kept his face blank. How'd he get that kind of power? "He showed up a few years ago," Clara said, voice barely above a whisper. "Bought up half the town, cheap, when the mill closed. People were desperate, took his money. Then he started squeezing. Protection rackets, loans, whatever. If you don't pay, you disappear. Or worse." Reacher nodded, filing it away. Kane's playbook hadn't changed. Find a weak spot, dig in, take over. "What's he got on you?" he asked. Clara's face crumpled just for a second before she pulled it back. "My brother. He owed Kane money, a lot. Couldn't pay. Kane's guys. They beat him bad, left him in a ditch. He's alive, but he's in a wheelchair now. I'm paying off his debt, working here, giving Kane half what I make. If I stop, they'll kill him." Reacher's hands clenched, but he kept still. He'd seen this before, too. Good people trapped, paying for someone else's mistakes. "How much do you owe?" 10 grand, she said, voice flat. "Might as well be 1,000,000. He didn't say anything for a moment, just looked at her, seeing the weight she carried. "You know where Kane is?" Clara shook her head. "Nobody knows. He's like a ghost. Got a big house outside town, but it's guarded like a fortress. You don't just walk in." "Maybe I do," Reacher said. Her eyes widened. "You're crazy. You go after Kane, you're dead. Those guys in the alley, that was just a warning. He's got worse. I've seen worse," Reacher said. He didn't smile, didn't brag. It was just a fact. Clara stared at him, like she was trying to figure out if he was brave or stupid. "Why are you doing this? You don't know me. You don't know this town." Reacher shrugged. "Don't like bullies." She let out a small, bitter laugh. "You're gonna get yourself killed." "Maybe," he said, "but not tonight." He turned to go, but Clara grabbed his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "Wait, if you're serious, there's a place you can start. The bar on 5th Street, Rusty's. Kane's guys hang out there. You want answers, that's where you'll find them. But be careful. They're not like Eddie and Tommy. They're bad." Reacher nodded. "Thanks. Lock this door after me. Don't open it for anyone else." She didn't answer, just watched as he stepped out into the night. The door clicked shut behind him, the lock sliding into place. Reacher stood for a moment, letting his eyes adjust to the dark. 5th Street wasn't far, maybe a 10-minute walk. He started moving, keeping to the shadows, his mind sharp. Rusty's was trouble waiting to happen, and Reacher was walking right into it. He didn't know what he'd find. More muscle, another shooter, maybe even Kane himself. But he knew one thing. Victor Kane had built a kingdom on fear, and Reacher was here to tear it down. One way or another, this town was about to change. Chapter 3. The first Cluejack Reacher moved through Redstone's streets like a shadow, his boots silent on the cracked pavement. The night was deep now, the kind of dark that swallows sound and makes every rustle feel like a threat. 5th Street was a short walk, but he took his time, sticking to alleys and side paths, eyes scanning for movement. Clara's warning rang in his head. The guys at Rusty's weren't like Eddie and Tommy. They were bad. Reacher didn't doubt it. He'd met bad before, plenty of times, and he was still standing. Rusty's bar sat at the end of 5th, a squat brick building with a flickering sign that buzzed like an angry wasp. The windows were grimy, letting out just enough light to show shapes moving inside. Big shapes, loud shapes. Music thumped, some country song about heartbreak and whiskey, muffled but heavy. Reacher stopped across the street, leaning against a lamppost, taking it in. 3 bikes parked out front, chrome gleaming under the streetlight. A pickup truck, dented and muddy, sat nearby. No guards outside, but that didn't mean the place was soft. It just meant they were cocky. He crossed the street slow and easy, like a guy out for a drink. The door was heavy. wood scarred with years of fights and spilled beer. He pushed it open, stepping into a haze of smoke and noise. The air smelled of sweat, liquor, and something sharper, like fear gone sour. The bar was packed, maybe 20 people, mostly men, leaning over tables or slouched at the counter. A jukebox glowed in the corner, spitting out another sad song. Nobody looked up when Reacher walked in, but he felt eyes on him, quick glances that sized him up and moved on. He made his way to the bar, sliding onto a stool at the far end, where he could see the door and the room. The bartender, a bald guy, with a beard and a tattoo of a snake on his neck, nodded but didn't smile. "What you having?" he asked, voice rough, like he'd smoked a pack already tonight. "Beer," Reacher said. "Whatever's cold." The bartender grabbed a bottle from a fridge, popped the cap, and slid it over. Reacher paid with cash, leaving a small tip, enough to blend in, not enough to stand out. He took a sip, the beer sharp and bitter, and let his eyes roam. Clara said Kane's guys hung out here. He needed to spot them, figure out who they were, what they knew, but he couldn't just ask, not yet. The crowd was rough. Leather jackets, work boots, faces that looked like they'd seen too many bad days. A group of 4 at a table near the jukebox caught his eye. They were louder than the rest, laughing hard, slamming bottles on the table. Big guys, all of them, with the kind of muscle that comes from lifting weights or breaking bones. One had a shaved head and a gold chain that glinted when he moved. Another had a scar running from his ear to his chin, like someone tried to carve him a new smile. They weren't hiding who they were, Kane's muscle, or close enough. Reacher sipped his beer, watching them in the mirror behind the bar. They weren't looking his way, but they were tense, like dogs waiting for a fight. He needed to get closer, hear what they were saying, but walking over would be suicide. 4 against 1 in a room full of their friends wasn't smart. He needed a way in. The door swung open, and a new guy walked in, short, wiry, with a weasel face and eyes that darted like he was casing the place. He wore a cheap suit, too big for his frame, and carried a manila envelope under one arm. The room didn't quiet, but it shifted, like everyone knew this guy and didn't like him. He headed straight for the table with the 4 guys. His walk, too fast, too eager. Reacher leaned back, keeping his face neutral, and listened. The music was loud, but he had good ears, trained from years of picking up whispers in war zones. The weasel guy sat down, sliding the envelope across the table to the one with the gold chain. "From the boss," Weasel said, voice high and nervous. "He wants it done tonight." Gold Chain grabbed the envelope, tearing it open. He pulled out a photo, glanced at it, and passed it to Scarface. "This the guy?" he asked, voice low but clear. Scarface nodded, smirking. "Yeah, big bastard. Won't be hard to find." Reacher's gut tightened. He couldn't see the photo, but he didn't need to. They were talking about him. The alley shooter hadn't been a one-off. Kane knew Reacher was here, and he was moving fast. Reacher kept his eyes on the mirror, his hand steady on the beer bottle. No point running. He'd walked into the lion's den, and now it was time to play. Weasel leaned in, talking fast. "Boss says no mistakes. Clean, quick, out of town. You mess this up, it's on you." Gold Chain laughed, a mean sound. "Relax, Jimmy. We got this. He's one guy. What's he gonna do? Reacher took another sip, slow, letting their words sink in. Jimmy, the weasel, was a messenger, probably low on the totem pole. Gold Chain and his crew were the real threat, Kane's enforcers, the ones who made people disappear. The photo meant they had his face, maybe from the diner, maybe from somewhere else, didn't matter. What mattered was the envelope, the orders, the clue to Kane's next move. He needed that envelope. Problem was, it was in Gold Chain's hand, and the table was surrounded by 4 guys who'd kill him without blinking. Reacher's mind worked fast and clear, like it always did when trouble was close. He could start a fight, take them head on, but that was messy, and he'd lose the element of surprise. He needed something smarter. The jukebox switched songs, louder now. Some rock anthem with a heavy bass line. Perfect. Reacher stood, casual, like he was heading for the bathroom. He walked past the table close enough to smell their cheap cologne, and tripped, his boot catching the leg of Gold Chain's chair. He stumbled forward, grabbing the table to steady himself, and in the chaos his hand brushed the envelope, knocking it to the floor. "Watch it, asshole!" Gold Chain snapped, shoving Reacher back. "Sorry," Reacher said, raising his hands, playing dumb. "Bad leg." He bent down, like he was checking his boot, and scooped the envelope under his jacket, smooth and fast. Nobody saw. Gold Chain was too busy cursing. Scarface was laughing, and Jimmy looked like he wanted to bolt. Reacher straightened, nodded an apology, and headed for the bathroom, his heart steady, the envelope burning a hole against his chest. The bathroom was a pit. Dirty tiles, a cracked mirror, the smell of piss and bleach. Reacher locked the door, pulled out the envelope and tore it open. Inside was the photo, grainy but clear. Him stepping out of the diner, caught by a security camera or a phone. Below it, a note, handwritten, short and to the point. "Take him out, tonight, Quarry Road." No signature, but it didn't need one. Kane's orders. Reacher memorized the note, tore it to pieces and flushed it. The photo he kept, folding it into his pocket. Quarry Road was new, probably a meet-up spot. Somewhere quiet, perfect for an ambush. He didn't know the town, but he'd find it. And when he did, he'd turn their trap into his. He stepped out of the bathroom, back into the noise and smoke. The table was in an uproar now, Gold Chain yelling at Jimmy about the missing envelope. Reacher didn't look their way. He dropped a few bucks on the bar, nodded to the bartender, and walked out, the night air hitting him like a slap. He had what he needed. A name, a place, a plan. Kane's guys were hunting him, but Reacher was hunting too. Quarry Road was waiting, and so was trouble. Reacher moved into the dark, ready for whatever came next. Chapter 4. Into the Lion's Den Jack Reacher slipped away from Rusty's bar, the night wrapping around him like a cloak. The air was sharp, carrying the faint smell of diesel and damp earth. Quarry Road was his next move, a name that meant trouble. Kane's trouble. The photo in his pocket and the note he'd flushed were proof. Victor Kane wanted him gone, and he wasn't wasting time. Reacher didn't know Redstone's layout, but he knew how to find what he needed. He always did. He headed back toward Main Street, keeping to the shadows, his boots soft on the pavement. The town was asleep, streetlights flickering, houses dark. A dog barked somewhere, sharp and quick, then went quiet. Reacher's eyes scanned every corner, every alley. He wasn't followed, not yet, but he felt the weight of eyes, like the town itself was watching, waiting for him to slip. He needed a map, or at least directions. The diner was closed. Clara was off limits for now. She'd already risked too much. The motel clerk might know something. But Reacher didn't trust him. Guys like that sold information to anyone with cash. He spotted a gas station up ahead, its fluorescent lights harsh against the dark. A sign read, "Open 24/7, and a bored kid in a hoodie leaned on the counter inside, scrolling on his phone. Perfect. Reacher pushed through the glass door, a bell chiming. The kid looked up, startled, then went back to his phone, like Reacher was just another late-night customer. The place smelled of coffee and motor oil, shelves stocked with chips, soda, and cheap sunglasses. Reacher grabbed a bottle of water and a candy bar, dropping them on the counter. "Quarry Road," he said, sliding a $5 across. "Where is it?" The kid, maybe 18, with acne and a lip ring, glanced up, frowning. "You ain't from here, huh?" "Nope," Reacher said. "Just need directions." The kid rang up the water and candy, handing back change. "It's out of town, maybe 5 miles north. Take the highway past the old mill, then a left at the busted sign for Cooper's farm. Dirt road, goes straight to the quarry. Ain't nobody goes there no more, though. Place is dead." "Dead how?" Reacher asked, peeling the wrapper off the candy bar. The kid shrugged, leaning back. "Used to be a gravel pit, shut down years ago. Folks say it's haunted or some crap. I just know it's creepy. You going there now? Middle of the night?" "Maybe," Reacher said, taking a bite of the candy. "Thanks." He left, the bell chiming again, and stepped into the dark. 5 miles wasn't bad, but walking it would take too long, and he didn't trust hitchhiking in a town like this. He needed wheels. The gas station had a couple of cars parked out back. Probably the kids, maybe a co-worker's. Reacher circled around, checking them out. A beat-up sedan, rust on the hood, looked promising. He glanced through the station's window. The kid was back on his phone, oblivious. Reacher wasn't a thief, not usually, but this was different. He'd borrow the car, leave it somewhere, safe, maybe with some cash for the trouble. The door was unlocked, small-town trust or just laziness. He slid inside, found the keys under the visor, and started it up. The engine coughed, then settled into a rough hum. He pulled out slow, lights off until he was a block away, then headed north. The highway was empty, just a ribbon of black cutting through fields and scrub. The old mill loomed on the right, a skeleton of rusted metal and broken windows. Reacher spotted the Cooper's farm sign, half collapsed, and turned left onto a dirt road that rattled the sedan's frame. Dust kicked up, clouding the air. He drove slow, windows down, listening for anything. Engines, voices, trouble. The quarry came. Into view, a wide, shallow pit carved into the earth, surrounded by piles of gravel and old machinery. The road ended at a gate, chain link with a padlock, but it was open, swinging slightly in the breeze. Sloppy. Kane's guys weren't expecting company, or they didn't care. Reacher killed the engine, grabbed his duffel, and stepped out, the bit night quiet except for the crunch of his boots. He moved low, using the shadows of the machinery for cover. The quarry was bigger than he'd thought, maybe a quarter-mile across, with steep walls and a flat bottom where a few trailers sat, their windows glowing faintly. Voices carried, low and rough, from one of the trailers. Reacher crept closer, staying behind a rusted bulldozer, and crouched listening. "Told you, he's coming," a voice said, deep and pissed. "Jimmy said he took the envelope. Boss ain't happy." Another voice, higher, nervous. "How's he even know where we are? Guy's a ghost." "Don't matter," the first voice snapped. "We got orders. He shows, we end him. Clean, like the note said." Reacher's jaw tightened. Gold Chain and his crew, or guys like them. The trailer was maybe 50 yards away, door half open, light spilling out. He counted 3 shadows inside, maybe 4. No sign of the bikes, or the pickup from Rusty's, which meant these were different guys, or they'd switched rides. Either way, he was outnumbered, and they were armed. Probably guns, maybe worse. He needed a plan. Charging in was a bad idea. He'd take a bullet. Before he got halfway, he scanned the quarry, eyes picking out details. A stack of metal pipes, a fuel drum, a pile of loose gravel. Tools, if he used them right. He slipped his duffel off, hiding it behind the bulldozer, and moved toward the pipes, silent as a cat. Pipes were heavy, about 3 feet long, perfect for swinging. He grabbed one, testing its weight, then circled toward the trailer, keeping low. The voices were clearer now, arguing about who'd screwed up at the bar. Reacher didn't care. He was here for answers, not revenge, not yet. He stopped 10 yards from the trailer, crouched behind a crate. The door was still open, and now he saw them. 3 guys, big, dressed like the ones at Rusty's. Leather jeans, boots. One had a shotgun across his lap. Another was cleaning a pistol. The third, the loud one, stood by the door, smoking, a knife strapped to his belt. No sign of the fourth, if there was one. Reacher's odds weren't great, but he'd had worse. He needed them split up. He picked up a rock, small enough to throw, and tossed it hard, aiming for the fuel drum 20 yards away. It hit with a loud clang, echoing in the quarry. The guy by the door dropped his cigarette, cursing, and grabbed the shotgun guy. "Go! Check it!" Shotgun grumbled but stood, racking the gun, and headed toward the drum, moving slow, eyes darting. Reacher waited, pipe in hand, as Shotgun passed his crate. When the guy was close, Reacher stepped out, silent, and swung the pipe hard at the back of his head. Shotgun dropped without a sound, the gun clattering. Reacher dragged him behind the crate, out of sight, and took the shotgun, checking the load. 4 shells. Good enough. The trailer was quieter now. The 2 left inside, muttering. "Where's Mikey?" Knife Guy said, stepping to the door, peering out. Reacher moved fast, using the moment. He sprinted to the trailer's side, staying below the windows, and pressed against the wall. The door was 5 feet away. He heard Knife Guy's boots on the gravel, coming out to look. Reacher waited, breath steady, then swung the pipe again as Knife Guy rounded the corner. It caught him in the jaw, a dull crack. He fell, knife skittering away. 1 left. Reacher stepped into the trailer, shotgun raised. Pistol Guy was at a table, frozen, hands halfway to his gun. He was younger than the others, maybe 25, with a buzz cut, and a face that hadn't seen enough fights to know better. "Don't," Reacher said, voice low, the shotgun steady. "Hands up." The guy swallowed, raising his hands slow, eyes wide. "Who the hell are you?" "Nobody," Reacher said. "Where's Kane?" The guy blinked, like the name was a bomb. "I don't—" Reacher stepped closer, the shotgun's barrel an inch from the guy's chest. "Don't lie. Quarry Road. You're here to kill me. Kane sent you. Where is he?" The guy's hands shook, sweat beading on his forehead. "I don't know, man. I swear. We get orders through Jimmy. Never seen Kane. He's everywhere, but nowhere, you know." Reacher didn't move, reading the guy's face. He was scared, but not lying. Low level, like Jimmy, just a cog in Kane's machine. "What's on Quarry Road?" Reacher asked. "Why here?" The guy hesitated, then spilled. "Drop point. We bring cash, leave it in the trailer. Someone picks it up. Don't know who. That's all I know, I swear." Reacher nodded, stepping back but keeping the shotgun up. "Get up. Walk." The guy stood, shaky, and Reacher marched him outside, away from the trailer, to the crate where shotgun was still out. Reacher tied their wrists with their own belts, tight enough to hold but not kill. He didn't want them dead, just out of the way. He went back to the trailer, searching fast. A duffel under the table held stacks of cash, maybe 10 grand, and a ledger with names and numbers, debts, payoffs, names of people like Clara, squeezed dry. Reacher pocketed the ledger, left the cash. He wasn't here to steal. He grabbed his pipe, his duffel from the bulldozer, and headed back to the car. The quarry was silent again, the trailer's light still glowing. Reacher drove off. Lights off until he hit the highway. The ledger was his first real clue, not just to Kane, but to his operation. Names, places, money. Kane's empire, laid out in ink. Reacher didn't smile, but he felt it. The hunt was on, and he was closing in. Chapter 5. The Enemy Revealed. Jack Reacher drove the borrowed sedan back toward Redston, the ledger tucked inside his jacket, its weight heavier than the paper it was made of. The highway stretched dark and empty, the only sound the hum of the engine and the faint rattle of loose gravel under the tires. The night felt alive, like it was holding its breath, waiting for the next move. Reacher's move. The quarry had given him answers, but more questions too. Kane's operation was big, bigger than one town, and the ledger was a map to its heart. He parked the car a block from the motel, leaving the keys inside and a 20 on the seat for the trouble. The streets were still quiet, but the air had a new edge, like trouble was stirring. Reacher slipped into the motel lot, sticking to the shadows, and checked his room from a distance. The door was shut, the chair still wedged under the knob through the window's crack. No one had been inside. Good. Inside, he locked the door again and sat on the bed, pulling out the ledger. It was small, leather-bound, the kind of thing a bookie might carry. Pages of names, dates, amounts, hundreds of entries, some crossed out, some marked paid. Clara's name was there, under debts, with $10,000 next to it, dated 6 months ago. Others were worse, families, businesses, even a church, all bleeding money to Kane. The drop point at Quarry Road was listed too, with dates and amounts, cash flowing out of Redston like a river. Reacher flipped to the last page. A single name, no numbers, V. Kane. No address, no phone, just the name, written in sharp, careful ink. Below it, a word, Overwatch. Reacher's eyes narrowed. Military term, meant a high position, someone watching the battlefield, calling the shots. Kane's code name, maybe, or his role. Either way, it was a clue, and Reacher didn't have many. He closed the ledger, stashed it in his duffel, and stood, pacing the small room. Kane was close. Clara said he had a house outside town, fortified, untouchable. The ledger proved he was running more than Redston, maybe a whole network. Drugs, protection, loans, who knew what else? Reacher had seen operations like this in Schulfür, the army, warlords and crooks who built empires on fear. Kane was no different, just slicker, hiding in a small town instead of a desert. A soft knock at the door stopped him cold. He didn't move, didn't breathe, listening. Another knock, lighter, hesitant. Not Kane's guys. They'd kicked the door in. Reacher stepped to the side, out of the doorway's line, and called, "Who's there?" A pause, then a voice, low and scared. "It's Clara, from the diner. Please, open the door." Reacher's gut said trap, but her voice was real, shaking like it had in the diner. He moved the chair, cracked the door, and peered out. Clara stood alone, her face pale under the motel's flickering light. A jacket pulled tight around her. No one else, no shadows moving. He opened the door wider, stepping back. "Get in, quick!" She slipped inside, and he locked the door, chair back in place. Clara's eyes darted around the room, like she expected trouble to jump out of the walls. "I shouldn't be here," she said, hugging herself. "If they find out." "They won't," Reacher said, keeping his voice calm. "Why'd you come?" She bit her lip, then met his eyes. "I heard what happened at Rusty's. Everyone's talking. They say you took something, messed up Kane's guys. They're looking for you, worse than before." Reacher nodded. He'd figured as much. What else? Clara hesitated, then pulled a crumpled paper from her pocket, handing it to him. "This was on my door when I got home. I don't know who left it, but it's about you." Reacher unfolded it. A flyer, cheap, printed in black ink. His face stared back. A grainy shot, same as the one from the quarry envelope. Below it, bold letters, wanted, $50,000 reward, dead or alive. No name, no number, just an address. A P.O. box in Redston. Kane's work, no question. Reacher's jaw tightened. 50 grand was a lot for a small town. Half of Redstone would be hunting him by morning. "They know you're here," Clara said, voice barely a whisper. "Kane's putting your face everywhere. You need to leave now, before—" "Not leaving," Reacher said, folding the flyer and tucking it away. "Not till this is done." Clara stared like he'd lost his mind. "You don't get it. Kane's not just some thug. He's like a king here. He owns everything, everyone. Even the people who hate him are too scared to fight. You can't win." "Maybe," Reacher said, "but I'm gonna try." She shook her head, but there was something new in her eyes. Hope, maybe, or just desperation. "Why?" "You don't owe me anything. You don't owe this town." Reacher didn't answer right away. He didn't have a good reason. Not one that made sense to most people. He just hated guys like Kane, always had. Bullies who broke people for fun, who thought they were untouchable. "Somebody's got her," he said finally. "Might as well be me." Clara didn't argue, but she didn't look convinced either. "There's something else," she said, voice dropping lower. I heard a name tonight at the diner. A customer, drunk, talking too loud, said Kane's meeting someone tomorrow. Someone big, not from here. At his house. They called it the deal. I don't know what it means, but it's important. Kane doesn't meet people himself unless it's huge. Reacher's mind clicked, pieces falling into place. A deal. A meeting. Kane stepping out of the shadows. This was his chance. Where's the house? He asked. North of town, past the quarry. Maybe 10 miles. Big place, old mansion. Used to be a mayor's or something. It's got walls, guards, cameras. You can't just walk in. Won't walk, Reacher said. I'll find a way. Clara grabbed his arm, her grip tight. You go there, you're dead. I'm telling you, Kane's ready for you. He knows you're coming. Then he'll get what he's waiting for, Reacher said. He didn't smile, didn't boast. Injustiusen was just the truth. She let go, stepping back, like she knew arguing was pointless. I hope you know what you're doing, she said. I really do. Go home, Reacher said. Lock your doors. Don't talk to anyone about this. Shamtiane nodded, pulling her jacket tighter, and slipped out, the door clicking shut behind her. Reacher wedged the chair back, then sat, pulling the ledger and flyer out. The reward was a problem. Too many eyes, too many guns. But the meeting was an opportunity. Kane was showing himself, maybe for the first time in years. Reacher didn't know who the someone big was, but it didn't matter. Get to Kane, end this, free Redstone. Simple, but not easy. He needed a plan. The house was a fortress, Clara said. Guards, cameras, walls. Reacher wasn't a sniper, didn't have a team, didn't even have a gun. Just his fists, his brain, and a stubborn streak wider than the highway. He'd need more than that to crack Kane's defenses. He stood grabbing his duffel and headed out, locking the room behind him. The motel was dark, the clerk's TV still flickering through the office window. Reacher moved fast, heading for the edge of town. He needed a vantage point, a way to scout Kane's house without being seen. The quarry was close enough, high ground, maybe a view. He'd borrow another car, or walk if he had to. Time was short. The meeting was tomorrow, and Kane's hunters were already on his trail. The night swallowed him as he moved, the ledger and flyer like keys in his pocket. Kane was the enemy, and now he was real, not just a name. Reacher didn't know what the deal was, or who was coming, but he knew one thing. He'd be there when it happened. And Kane would see him coming. Chapter 6. A deadly trapjack Reacher moved through the pre-dawn dark, the air cold and heavy with the promise of trouble. Redstone slept, its streets empty, but Reacher felt the town's pulse, like a heart beating too fast. The ledger and flyer in his jacket were burning holes, each a piece of Kane's world, each a step closer to the man himself. Clara's tip about the meeting at Kane's house was gold, but gold came with danger. A fortress, she'd called it, guards, walls, cameras. Reacher needed to see it for himself, and he needed to do it now, before the town woke and the reward, on his head, turned every eye against him. He ditched the idea of borrowing another car. Too risky, too many chances to be spotted. Instead he walked, cutting through backyards and fields, staying off the roads. The quarry was his first stop. high ground where he could scout the land north of town. 10 miles was a long hike, but Reacher was built for it. His long strides, eating the distance, his mind sharp despite no sleep. Sleep was for later, when the fight was done. The sky was greying by the time he reached the quarry's edge, the pit sprawling below like a scar in the earth. He climbed a low ridge, keeping low, and crouched behind a rusted crane, its arm jutting like a broken bone. From here he could see the land stretching north, fields, a few scattered houses, then a dark smudge on the horizon. Kane's house, maybe too far to make out details, but big enough to stand out. He'd need to get closer, but first he checked the quarry itself. No trailers glowed now, no voices carried. The guys he'd taken out were gone, probably limping back to Kane, with their tails tucked. Reacher pulled the ledger from his jacket, flipping through it in the dim light. The names and numbers were a map of Kane's grip. Dozens of people, thousands of dollars, all flowing to him. The word Overwatch stuck in his head. If Kane was Overwatch, he was the one watching it all, pulling every string. The meeting today was a chance to cut those strings, but only if Reacher could get inside without dying. A faint sound snapped him alert. Gravel crunching, soft but deliberate, from the quarry below. He froze, eyes scanning the shadows. A figure moved, low and fast, near the trailers. Then another, on the ridge opposite, barely a silhouette against the dawn. Reacher's gut twisted. Not random. They were hunting, and he was the prey. He slipped the ledger back into his jacket and eased down, using the crane for cover. The figures were closing in, 3 now, maybe 4, moving like they'd done this before. Trained, not just thugs. Kane's pros, sent to clean up the mess from last night. The reward flyer had done its job. They knew he'd come back here, knew he'd scout the quarry. Reacher cursed himself for being predictable, but there was no time for regret. He needed to move. The nearest figure was 30 yards away, creeping along the quarry's edge, a rifle in his hands, scope glinting, faintly. Reacher's shotgun, taken from the trailer, was in his duffel, too far to reach without being seen. His pipe was gone, lost in the fight. All he had was his fists and the ground under him. Good enough. He grabbed a handful of loose gravel, waited for the rifleman to turn, and tossed it hard, aiming for a metal drum 10 yards to his left. The clatter echoed, sharp in the quiet. The rifleman spun, weapon up, and signalled to the others. 2 more figures broke cover, moving toward the drum, handguns drawn. Reacher used the moment, sliding down the ridge's backside, silent and circled wide, coming up behind the rifleman. The guy was good, head on a swivel, rifle steady. But he didn't hear Reacher until it was too late. Reacher lunged, one hand clamping the guy's mouth, the other twisting the rifle free. The rifleman bucked, but Reacher was stronger, driving a knee into his spine, dropping him to the dirt. A quick punch to the temple, and the guy was out, breathing but still. Reacher grabbed the rifle, a hunting model with a decent scope, and checked the mag. 8 rounds. He slung it over his shoulder and moved, staying low, toward the trailers. The other 2 were still near the drum, calling out in low voices, realizing their buddy was gone. A 4th figure appeared, heavier, moving slower, from the quarry's gate. Backup, maybe, or the boss of this crew. Reacher didn't wait to find out. He sprinted to the nearest trailer, pressing against its wall, and peeked around the corner. The two by the drum were splitting up, one heading his way, the other circling back toward the gate. Bad move. They'd be easier to take alone. Reacher waited, breath steady, as the closer one, a lean guy with a buzz cut and a pistol, neared the trailer. When he was 5 feet away, Reacher stepped out, rifle butt swinging, catching the guy's jaw. He crumpled, gun skittering across the gravel. The second guy heard the noise, shouting, "Tanner, you good?" No answer. He raised his pistol, firing blind toward the trailer. Bullets pinging off metal. Reacher dropped flat, crawling under the trailer, the dirt cold against his chest. He saw the guy's boots, moving fast, coming closer. Reacher rolled out the other side, stood, and fired the rifle. A single shot to the guy's leg. He screamed, dropping, clutching his thigh. The fourth figure, the heavy one, was running now, toward the gate, shouting into a radio. Reacher couldn't hear the words, but he didn't need to. Reinforcements were coming, and fast. He sprinted, after the guy, legs pumping, closing the gap. The man was slow, panting, but he reached the gate, fumbling with a key for a pickup parked just outside. Reacher tackled him, driving him into the dirt, and pinned his arms. "Who sent you?" Reacher growled, knee on the guy's chest. The man, red-faced and sweating, spat blood. "You're dead, man! You don't know who you're messing with!" "Kane," Reacher said, pressing harder. "Where is he?" The guy laughed, a wet, ugly sound. "You'll find out. He's waiting for you." Reacher didn't have time for games. He slammed the guy's head into the ground, not hard enough to kill, just to knock him out. He searched the man's pockets. Keys, a phone, a folded map. The map was crude, hand-drawn, showing the quarry and a road north, marked with a red X. Kane's house had to be. The meeting place. Reacher pocketed it, grabbed the pickup's keys, and ran to the truck. The engine roared to life, louder than he liked, but speed mattered more than stealth now. He floored it, dust billowing, and headed north, the map on the seat beside him. The trap at the quarry had been close, too close. Kane's guys were better than he'd thought, and they were everywhere. But the map was a win, a straight line to the lion's den. The road climbed, fields giving way to woods, the mansion coming into view, a sprawl of stone and iron, surrounded by a high wall topped with wire. Lights glowed, cameras glinted, and shadows moved. Guards, at least 6, armed. Clara hadn't lied. This was a fortress, and Reacher was walking into it with a stolen rifle, a ledger, and a bad mood. He pulled off the road, hiding the pickup in a thicket, and checked the map again. The X marked a gate, but there was a second mark, fainter, near the back. Maybe a service entrance, less guarded. Reacher didn't know what the meeting was, or who Kane was seeing, but he knew this. Today was his shot. Kane was close, and Reacher was closer. He grabbed the rifle, checked his duffel, and moved into the woods, the dawn breaking red over the trees. The trap had failed, but Kane was still out there, waiting. Reacher was coming, and hell was coming with him. Chapter 7. The Cost of Loyalty. Jack Reacher crouched in the woods, the morning light filtering through thick pines, casting jagged shadows on the ground. Cain's mansion loomed 100 yards away, its stone walls and iron gates like something out of a warlord's playbook. The map from the quarry thug was in his pocket, the red X marking the main gate, the fainter mark hinting at a back way in. Reacher's stolen rifle hung across his back, the ledger safe in his duffel, hidden under a pile of leaves. He didn't need it now, just his eyes, his hands, and the stubborn drive to finish what he'd started. The air was crisp, smelling of sap and gun oil. Reacher watched the guards patrol the perimeter, their movements tight, professional. 6. Outside, maybe more inside, with rifles and sidearms, radios crackling on their belts. Cameras swept the walls, red lights blinking. Clara's words echoed. A fortress. She wasn't kidding. Getting in would be hard, getting out harder. But Reacher had cracked tougher nuts than this. He just needed an edge. He studied the back, entrance on the map. A narrow path through the woods, likely for deliveries or staff. Less guarded, maybe, but not unguarded. He moved silent, keeping low, weaving through trees until he reached the edge of the clearing. The back gate was smaller, chain link instead of iron, with a single guard. A stocky guy in a black jacket, smoking, his rifle slung loose over his shoulder. Sloppy. Reacher could use that. He waited, timing the guard's movements. The guy paced, bored, checking his watch every few minutes. No radio chatter, no backup in sight. Reacher picked up a small stone, tossed it lightly into the bushes 20 feet away. The guard froze, hand on his rifle, and stepped toward the sound, peering into the trees. Reacher moved fast and quiet, closing the gap in seconds. He grabbed the guard's neck, squeezing just enough to cut off air, and dragged him into the shadows. The guy went limp, out cold. Reacher tied his hands with his own belt and took the rifle, a better model than the one from the quarry, with a full mag. The gate was locked, a heavy padlock that wouldn't budge. Reacher checked the guard's pockets. Keys, a lighter, a pack of smokes. The smallest key fit, clicking open with a soft snap. He slipped through, easing the gate shut, and moved into the mansion's grounds, staying low behind a row of hedges. The house was closer now. 3 stories of grey stone. Windows, dark except for a few on the top floor. That's where Cain would be, Reacher figured. High up, watching, like the Overwatch in the ledger. Voices drifted from the front, sharp and angry. Reacher crept closer, using a stone fountain for cover, and peeked around. 2 guards stood by the main gate, arguing with a third man, short, wiry, familiar. Jimmy, the weasel from Rusty's, clutching another envelope, his face pale and sweaty. Reacher's gut tightened. Jimmy was Cain's errand boy, delivering orders. If he was here, the meeting was close, maybe starting soon. Jimmy handed the envelope to one of the guards, a tall guy with a shaved head, then scurried back to a black SUV parked outside the gate. The guard tore open the envelope, read something and cursed, loud enough for Reacher to catch it. Boss wants us ready now. Guests early. Reacher's mind raced. The someone big Clara mentioned was here or close. Cain was moving fast, tying up loose ends before the deal. That meant more guards, more eyes, less time. Reacher needed to get inside, find Cain, and end this before the meeting locked the place down, tighter than a vault. He backtracked to the service path, following it to a side door. Metal, no window. but a keypad glowing faintly. The guard's keys wouldn't help here. Reacher scanned the area. A camera above the door, aimed straight down. No way to dodge it. He needed another way in fast. A low window, half hidden by bushes, caught his eye. Basement, maybe. He crawled over, checked for alarms, none visible, and pried it open with the guard's lighter, the frame creaking but giving way. He squeezed through, dropping into a dark, damp space that smelled of mould and old concrete. The basement was a maze of crates and pipes, lit by a single flickering bulb. Reacher moved, silent, rifle ready, ears straining. Footsteps echoed above, heavy and quick, guards getting into position. He found a stairwell, narrow and steep, leading up. No choice now. He climbed slow, testing each step for creaks, until he reached a door. Cracked it open, peeked out. A hallway, empty, with polished wood floors and walls lined with old paintings. Some rich guy's idea of class, probably the mayor Clara mentioned. He slipped into the hallway, moving toward the sound of voices, louder now, coming from a room at the end. A double door, half open, spilled light and words into the hall. Reacher crouched, inching closer, and listened. "Don't care what it costs," a voice said, deep, smooth, in control. "Kane. Had to be. This deal locks it down. No more. Small-time crap. We go global, or we go nowhere." Another voice, rougher, unfamiliar. "You're sure this guy's worth it? 50 grand's a lot for one drifter." "He's not just a drifter," Kane snapped. "He's a problem, my problem, and I don't leave problems walking." Reacher's jaw clenched. Kane knew him, not just his face, but his past. This wasn't about the diner or the quarry. It was personal. That army bust years ago, Kane's burned operation, his busted jaw. He hadn't forgotten, and now Reacher was paying the price. He edged closer, peering through the door's gap. Kane stood by a massive desk, tall, lean, older than Reacher remembered, but still sharp, like a blade honed by years of hate. His hair was grey now, his face lined, but his eyes were the same. Cold, calculating, a man who'd kill you and sleep fine after. Across from him was a stranger, broad-shouldered, in a dark suit, with a briefcase open on the desk, papers and cash inside. The guest, the someone big. 2 guards stood by the wall, rifles ready, watching the door. Reacher pulled back, mind working. 5 in the room. Kane, the guest, 3 guards. More outside, maybe upstairs. The meeting was happening now, and he was out of time. He could storm in, take his chances, but that was a death wish. He needed a distraction, something to scatter them. A fire alarm box hung on the wall, red and tempting. Reacher didn't hesitate. He smashed the glass with his elbow, yanked the lever, and ducked into a side room as the siren wailed, shrill and deafening. Shouts erupted, footsteps pounding. The double doors flew open, guards rushing out, Kane barking orders. Reacher waited, rifle up, as the guest stormed past, briefcase in hand, flanked by 1 guard. Kane stayed behind, alone now, cursing into a phone. Reacher saw his chance. He stepped into the room, rifle aimed at Kane's chest. "Hang up," he said, voice low, steady. Kane froze, phone at his ear, then slowly set it down, his eyes locking on Reacher. No fear, just hate, pure and sharp. "You," he said like the word was poison. "Should have known you'd show." "Hands up," Reacher said, stepping closer, the rifle unwavering. "No games." Kane raised his hands, slow, smirking. "You're good, Reacher. Always were. But you're late. The deal's done. You can't stop it." "Deal's not my problem," Reacher said. "You are." Kane laughed, a cold, empty sound. "You think this ends with me? You're dumber than I thought." Reacher didn't answer. He was about to step forward, tie Kane up, when a floorboard creaked behind him. Too late. A guard, one he hadn't seen, swung a rifle butt at his head. Reacher dodged, but it clipped, his shoulder pain flaring hot. He spun, firing the rifle, catching the guard in the chest. The man dropped, but Kane was moving, diving behind the desk, pulling a gun from a drawer. Reacher hit the floor as Kane fired, bullets splintering the wall. The siren still wailed, chaos outside, but in here it was just them. Two men who'd wanted this fight for years. Reacher rolled, firing back, the rifle's kick hard against his shoulder. Kane ducked, bullets shredding the desk, papers flying, then silence, except for the siren. Reacher stayed low, listening. Kane was still behind the desk, breathing hard. "You can't win, Reacher," he called, voice tight. "This is bigger than you. Walk away, or you're dead." Reacher didn't answer. He crawled to the side toward a bookshelf and yanked it down, crashing it across the desk. Kane cursed, scrambling, and Reacher was on him, tackling him to the floor. They grappled, Kane's gun skittering away, fists flying. Kane was tough, wiry, but Reacher was bigger, stronger, driven by years of pent-up justice. He slammed Kane's head into the floor, once, twice. Kane went limp, eyes rolling back. Reacher stood, panting, blood on his knuckles. The siren cut off, sudden quiet ringing in his ears. Footsteps pounded. Guards, coming back. He grabbed Kane's gun, a sleek pistol, and dragged Kane's body behind the desk, propping him up like he was still alive. A trick, but it might buy. Seconds. The door burst open, two guards rushing in, rifles up. Reacher fired from cover, dropping one, then the other quick and clean. He didn't like killing, but they'd chosen their side. He searched Kane's pockets. Keys, a phone, a folded note. The note had one word. Loyalty. Reacher's gut twisted. A code, a warning, maybe a name. He pocketed it, grabbed his rifle and ran, the house erupting in shouts behind him. He hit the basement, then the window, squeezing out into the bushes. The grounds were chaos. Guards running, an SUV speeding away. Probably the guest. Reacher melted into the woods, heart pounding but steady. Kane was down, maybe dead, but the fight wasn't over. The note, the deal, the guest, it was all still out there. And loyalty, whatever it meant, was going to cost someone big. Chapter 8. No Way Out. Jack Reacher slipped through the woods, the morning sun slicing through the trees, turning the ground into a patchwork of light and shadow. His shoulder ached from the guard's rifle butt, and his knuckles stung with Kane's blood. But he moved fast, silent, the stolen pistol tucked in his waistband, the rifle slung over his back. The note in his pocket, loyalty, burned like a coal. Kane was down, maybe dead, but Reacher didn't feel victory. The fight was far from over. The guest, the deal, the chaos he'd left at the mansion, It all pointed to something bigger, and he was still in the dark. The woods thinned, giving way to open fields, Redstone's outskirts visible in the distance. Reacher stopped, crouching, behind a fallen log, and checked his back trail. No pursuit yet, but it was coming. Kane's guards would regroup, and that $50,000 reward flyer meant every greedy soul in town would be looking for him. He needed a plan, a place to hole up, and answers about that note. Loyalty wasn't just a word. It was a clue, maybe a name, maybe a warning. He'd find out, but first he had to survive. He pulled the map from the quarry thug, now creased and smudged, and studied it. The mansion was marked, but there was another spot, a faint circle a mile west, unlabeled. Could be a safe house, a stash, or another trap. Reacher didn't like guesses, but he needed somewhere to think, and the motel was burned. Too many eyes, too close to Kane's reach. The circle was his best bet. He moved, keeping low, skirting the fields to avoid open ground. The air was warming, the sky clear, bad for hiding, but good for seeing trouble coming. Halfway to the circle, he heard engines, trucks, maybe 3, roaring from the direction of the mansion. Reacher dropped into a ditch, tall grass hiding him, and watched. 2 pickups and a black SUV sped past, dust swirling, headed for Redstone. Guards hunting him. The SUV's plates were out of state, not local. The guest, maybe, or someone tied to the deal. Reacher memorized the number, then kept moving. The circle on the map led to an old barn, half collapsed, surrounded by overgrown weeds and rusted farm equipment. The wood was grey, splintered, but the door was new, reinforced with steel, a shiny padlock gleaming, not abandoned. Reacher circled, checking for cameras or tripwires. None, but fresh tire tracks cut through, the dirt leading to the door. Someone had been here, recent. He knelt by the lock, pulling the keys he'd taken from Kane. One fit, turning with a soft click. He eased the door open, pistol ready, and stepped inside. The barn smelled of hay and oil, dim light filtering through, cracked boards. A tarp-covered shape sat in the centre. A vehicle, maybe. Crates lined the walls, some open, stuffed with plastic bags of white powder. Drugs. Kane's side hustle, or part of the deal. Reacher didn't touch them. He wasn't here to play cop. A metal box caught his eye, bolted to the floor, no lock but a latch. He opened it, finding a stack of files, a radio and a burner phone. The files were thin, each with a name and photo, clipped to the front. He flipped through. Clara's was there, her brother's too, with notes on their debt, their lives. Others were strangers, all marked active or closed. Kane's blackmail book, keeping his empire tight. The last file stopped him cold. His own name, Jack Reacher, with a photo from years ago, army days, and a single line: eliminate priority. Reacher's jaw tightened. Kane hadn't just remembered him. He'd been tracking him, maybe for years. This wasn't random. The diner, the alley, the quarry. It was all part of a net, closing around him. He pocketed the file, grabbed the burner phone, and checked the radio. It crackled, then a voice came through, sharp and panicked. "He's hit the house. Boss is down. Find him now. Check the barn, the mill, everywhere." Reacher turned it off. They knew he'd been at the mansion, and they were closing in. The barn wasn't safe, not for long. He needed to move, but first he checked the tarp. No, it was a Jeep, keys in the ignition, tank full. He didn't smile, but it was a break. He tossed his duffel in, started the engine, and eased out, the barn door swinging shut behind him. The road back to Redstone was risky, but he needed information. Clara was his only ally, if she still was. Her diner was a long shot, too public, too watched. But she might know what loyalty meant, or who the guest was. He drove fast, sticking to back roads, the Jeep's tires chewing dirt. The town came into view, quiet but tense, like it knew blood was coming. He parked a block from the diner, hiding the Jeep behind a shuttered store, and walked the rest, cap low, jacket collar up. The reward flyer was everywhere, taped to poles, stuffed under wipers. His face stared back, grainy but clear, $50,000 screaming to anyone with a gun. He slipped into an alley, watching the diner from across the street. The neon was off, but a light glowed inside, and Clara's silhouette moved behind the counter. Reacher crossed, quick and quiet, and tapped the side door. Clara opened it, eyes wide, fear etched deep. "You're crazy!" she hissed, pulling him in. "They're everywhere. I saw the flyers." "Talk fast," Reacher said, locking the door. "What's loyalty?" Clara froze, like the word was a snake. "Where'd you hear that?" "Found it on Kane," he said, pulling the note. "Tell me." She swallowed, glancing at the windows. "It's a person. Kane's right hand, his enforcer. Nobody knows their real name, just loyalty. They handle the dirty work, killings, deals, whatever Kane doesn't touch himself. If Kane's down, loyalty's running things now." Reacher's mind clicked. The guest, maybe, or someone else, still in the shadows. The meeting at the house, who was it? Clara shook her head. "I don't know, I swear. Just heard it was big out-of-town money. Drugs, maybe guns." Kane was excited, like it'd make him untouchable. Reacher nodded, filing it away. Loyalty, the guest, the deal. It was all connected, and he was the loose thread they wanted snipped. "You need to get out," he told her. "Take your brother, go somewhere safe." "I can't," she said, voice breaking. "They'll find us. You don't know what they're like." "I do," Reacher said, "and I'm ending it." A-H-O. Crash outside cut him off. Glass breaking, then shouts. Reacher peered through the diner's blinds. Two men, big, armed, kicking in the door of a shop across the street, yelling his name. The reward had them rabid. Clara grabbed his arm. "Go now! Back door!" Reacher didn't argue. He slipped out. The alley, dark and narrow, but engines roared nearby. More hunters, closing in. He ran, low and fast, toward the Jeep, but headlights swept the street, a pickup blocking his path. 3 men jumped out, rifles up, faces hungry for that $50,000, no way out. Reacher dove behind a dumpster, pistol in hand, heart steady. The barn, the mansion, the diner. He'd been running, fighting. But now he was cornered. Loyalty was out, there, pulling strings, and Redstone was a cage. He'd have to shoot his way free or die trying. Chapter 9. The breaking point. Jack Reacher pressed against the cold metal of the dumpster. The alley's shadows his only cover. The pickup's headlights cut through the dark, pinning him like a spotlight. 3 men fanned out, rifles raised, their boots crunching on broken glass. Their voices were loud, eager, drunk on the promise of $50,000. Reacher's pistol was heavy in his hand, the stolen rifle still slung across his back. He had maybe 10 rounds total, not enough for a firefight, but enough to make a point. The jeep was a block away, useless now. He was trapped, and Redstone was closing in. "Come out, big man," one of them shouted, a stocky guy with a beard, his rifle sweeping the alley. "We know you're here. Make it easy, and maybe you walk away." Reacher didn't answer. Talking was for suckers. He scanned the alley, narrow, lined with trash cans, a fire escape dangling above, rusted but sturdy. Options, but none good. The men were closing, maybe 20 feet away, spreading to block both ends. Behind him, a chain-link fence, too high to climb fast. The diner's back door was locked, Clara inside, probably terrified. He wouldn't drag her into this. He slowed his breathing, mind sharp, calculating. 3 against 1, armed, but they were amateurs, greedy, not trained. Their rifles were up, but their stances were sloppy, eyes darting too much. Reacher had faced worse odds, but not with a whole town on his tail. Loyalty, Kane's enforcer, was out there, orchestrating this. And these guys were just the first wave. The bearded guy fired a shot, wild, the bullet sparking off the dumpster. "Last chance," he yelled, voice cracking with nerves. Reacher moved. He grabbed a trash can lid, flung it like a frisbee at the bearded guy's head, and sprinted for the fire escape. The lid hit, a dull clang, and Beard stumbled, cursing. The other 2 fired, bullets chewing the wall where Reacher had been. He jumped, grabbing the fire escape's lowest rung, and hauled himself up, muscles burning. The ladder groaned but held. He climbed fast as more shots rang out, pinging off metal. On the roof, he dropped flat, crawling to the edge. The men were below, shouting, one running to the ladder, the others covering the alley's ends. Reacher aimed the pistol, steady, and fired once, hitting the ladder guy's shoulder. He screamed, dropping his rifle, and the others ducked, confused. Reacher didn't wait. He ran across the roof, leaping to the next building, a short gap but a hard landing. His boots hit gravel, knees jarring, and he kept moving, rooftops his, only path. The town was waking, lights flickering on, voices rising. The reward flyer had done its job. Redstone was a hornet's nest, and Reacher was the stick. He needed distance, a place to think. The barn was too far, the motel a death trap. Clara's words about loyalty stuck with him. Kane's right hand, the one who made bodies disappear. If Kane was down, loyalty was calling the shots and they weren't playing small. Reacher dropped to another alley. Quieter, no headlights. He checked the file he'd taken from the barn. His own, marked Eliminate, Priority. It had details. His army record, last known sightings, even a note about his habit of drifting. Kane had been hunting him long before Redstone, and loyalty was finishing the job. The burner phone from the barn was still in his pocket, dead now, but the files mentioned a backup drop point, an old warehouse on the edge of town. It was a risk, but Reacher was out of safe bets. He moved, sticking to back streets, avoiding the main roads where trucks and voices were growing louder. The warehouse was a mile off, past a rail yard, in a part of Redstone that looked forgotten. Crumbling brick, weeds choking empty lots. The building was big, tin-roofed with broken windows and a faded sign. Redstone Storage. Tire tracks marked the dirt out front, fresh. Someone was here or had been. Reacher circled, checking for guards. None, but a side door was ajar, a chain cut and dangling. He slipped inside, pistol ready, eyes adjusting to the dim. The warehouse was a cavern of crates and pallets, some covered, some open, stuffed with more plastic bags. Drugs, like the barn. Kane's empire was deep, and this was another vein. A faint hum came from the back, like a generator. Reacher moved toward it, silent, every sense on edge. The hum led to a small office, door cracked, light spilling out. Voices inside, low, urgent. Reacher crouched, listening. One was sharp, commanding. A woman's voice, not what he'd expected. He's hit the house, taken out half our guys. We can't wait. Move the shipment now. Another voice, male, nervous. What about the reward? Town's crawling with hunters. He won't last. He's lasted this long. The woman snapped. Don't underestimate him. Kane did, and look where it got him. Reacher's pulse quickened. The woman, loyalty, had to be. She was here, running the show, and she knew he was close. He edged closer, peering through the door's gap. The woman was tall, lean, maybe 40, with short black hair and a face like stone. She stood over a table, maps and papers spread out, a radio crackling beside her. The man was smaller, twitchy, in a cheap suit, another Jimmy type, just a runner. 2 guards stood by the wall, rifles slung, watching the door. Reacher weighed his options. 4 inside, maybe more outside. The shipment, drugs, guns, whatever, was the deal Clara mentioned, or part of it. Stopping it could cripple loyalty, maybe end this. But storming in was suicide. He needed a play, something to tip the odds. The generator was his answer. He backtracked, finding it in a corner. A rusty box wired to the office. He yanked the fuel line, gas spilling, the hum dying. The office went dark, shouts erupting. Reacher moved, fast, kicking the door open, pistol up. The guards fired blind, bullets ripping crates. Reacher dropped one with a shot to the chest, then tackled the other, slamming him into the wall. The runner screamed, diving under the table. Loyalty was gone, a back door swinging. Reacher didn't chase. Not yet. He grabbed the maps, stuffed them in his jacket and searched the runner, who was shaking, hands up. "Where's she going?" Reacher growled, pistol at the man's throat. "I don't know," the runner stammered. "She's loyalty, that's all I know. Said something about the rail yard. A train tonight." Reacher knocked him out, a quick fist to the jaw, and ran for the back door. Outside, a car engine roared, tires spinning. Loyalty was slipping away, but she'd left a trail. The maps, the rail yard. The warehouse was quiet now, but the town wasn't. Sirens wailed, distant but closing. The hunters were coming, and Reacher was at his breaking point. Tired, hurt, hunted, but he wasn't done. He sprinted for the rail yard, the maps his only lead. Loyalty was the key now, not Kane. She was the one keeping Redstone chained, and Reacher was her shadow, 1 step behind but gaining. The fight was personal, and he'd see it through no matter the cost. Chapter 10. Allies in the Darkjack Reacher ran through Redstone's rail yard. the afternoon sun harsh, glinting off rusted tracks and abandoned boxcars. His lungs burned, his shoulder throbbed, but he didn't slow. The maps from the warehouse were stuffed in his jacket, their edges sharp against his chest. Loyalty had slipped away, her car's dust trails still settling, but her words echoed, a train, tonight, at the rail yard. Whatever she was moving, drugs, guns, or worse, it was the heart of Kane's deal, and Reacher was close to cracking it open. The $50,000 reward flyers plastered across town meant he was running out of time, and allies were scarce. The rail yard was a maze of steel and decay, locomotives looming like sleeping giants, their paint peeled to bare metal. Reacher ducked behind a boxcar, catching his breath, and checked the maps. One showed the rail yard, a red line marking a siding track near the West End, labelled Drop 3. The others were broader, roads out of Redston, a warehouse in a neighbouring county, a dock 2 states away. Kane's empire wasn't just local, it was a network, and loyalty was tying it together. Reacher folded the maps, his mind racing. Stop the train, stop the deal, find loyalty. Simple, but deadly. Footsteps crunched, nearby, sharp on gravel. Reacher froze, pistol in hand, peering through a gap in the boxcar's slats. 2 men, not Kane's pros, locals, rough, with hunting rifles and greedy eyes. Bounty hunters, drawn by the reward. They moved slow, whispering, one pointing to tracks in the dirt. Reacher's tracks. He cursed silently. The town was crawling with these guys, and every move he made left a trail. He slipped under the boxcar, belly to the ground, and crawled to the next track, staying low. The men passed, their shadows long in the sun, missing him by inches. Reacher waited, then stood, moving west toward the siding. The rail yard was quiet, but not empty. Voices carried faint from the far end. Workers, maybe, or more of loyalty's crew. He couldn't trust anyone, not with his face on every pole in Redston. The siding came into view, a short track branching off, ending at a loading platform. A single boxcar sat there. New paint, no rust, out of place in this graveyard. Reacher crouched behind a stack of ties, watching. No guards, no cameras, but a padlock on the boxcar's door gleamed fresh and heavy. Whatever was inside was valuable, and loyalty wasn't leaving it to chance. He needed to get inside, see what she was moving. He scanned the platform. Tools, scattered, a crowbar among them. He darted out, grabbed it, and pried at the lock, metal groaning. It held, but the door's latch gave slightly. One more push, and it'd pop. Before he could try, a voice hissed behind him. "Don't move!" Reacher froze, crowbar in hand, and turned his head just enough to see. A man stood 10 feet away, not a bounty hunter or a guard. Older, maybe 60, with a weathered face and a shotgun aimed steady. His clothes were worn. Flannel, jeans, work boots, like he belonged here, not with Kane's crew. Reacher didn't raise his hands, but he didn't swing either. "Who are you?" he asked, voice calm. "Name's Hollis," the man said, eyes hard but not cruel. "Rail worker, 30 years. Saw you sneaking around. You're the one on the flyers, ain't you?" "Does it matter?" Reacher said, keeping still. The shotgun was close, too close to dodge. Hollis didn't lower the gun, but his jaw tightened like he was weighing something. "Matters if you're here to stir up Kane's mess. I don't like him, never did. Been bleeding this town dry since he showed." Reacher nodded, slow. "I'm not with Kane. I'm here to stop him. That boxcar, what's in it?" Hollis hesitated, then stepped. Closer, gun still up. "You're either crazy or telling the truth. Either way, you're trouble. Boxcar's been here 2 days, locked tight. Kane's people come at night, load it up. Don't know what, but it ain't legal." "Help me open it," Reacher said, meeting his eyes. "You want Kane gone? This is how it starts." Hollis stared long and hard, then lowered the shotgun just an inch. "You're a wanted man. I turn you in. I'm rich. Why should I trust you?" "You shouldn't," Reacher said. "But you hate Kane. So do I. That's enough for now." Hollis grunted, like he didn't buy it, but didn't have a better play. "All right, but you try anything, I'll shoot you myself." He stepped to the boxcar, pulling a key ring from his belt. "Master key, for the yard. Might work." Reacher stepped aside, crowbar ready in case Hollis was lying. The key turned, the lock clicking open. Hollis slid the door, slow, metal screeching. Inside, crates were stacked floor to ceiling, marked with numbers, no names. Reacher climbed in, pried one open with the crowbar. Plastic bags, white powder, drugs, like the barn and warehouse. Another crate held rifles, military grade, new. The deal wasn't just big, it was an arsenal. Hollis whistled low. "Kane's playing warlord. This gets out. Redstone's done." "It won't," Reacher said, climbing down. "Train's tonight. We stop it here. We?" Hollis raised an eyebrow, shotgun still in hand. "I ain't signing up for your fight." "You already did," Reacher said, nodding at the boxcar. "You opened that door. Kane's people find out. You're as dead as me." Hollis cursed, but he didn't argue. "What's the plan, then?" Reacher didn't have one, not fully, but pieces were falling into place. Train leaves tonight. We derail it or block it. Buy time to find loyalty. She's running this now. You know the tracks." "Like my own hands," Hollis said. "Switch up ahead. Can lock the siding. Train won't move till it's cleared." "Do it," Reacher said. "I'll watch your back." Hollis nodded, reluctant but in. They moved, Hollis leading to a control box near the siding, rusted but working. He flipped switches, levers grinding, locking the track. Reacher stood guard, pistol ready, scanning the yard. The sun was dipping, shadows stretching, and the air felt heavier, like a storm was coming. A shot cracked, sudden, splintering the control box. Hollis ducked, cursing, as Reacher spun, spotting 2 figures on a boxcar's roof, rifles gleaming. Not locals, loyalty's pros sent to secure the train. Reacher fired one shot, grazing a shooter's arm. They dropped, rolling for cover. More shouts echoed, boots pounding. The yard was alive now, loyalty's crew closing in. "Move!" Reacher grabbed Hollis, shoving him toward a locomotive for cover. Bullets pinged off steel, the air thick with dust and noise. Hollis clutched his shotgun, face pale but set. "You got me into this, you bastard," he growled. "Stay low," Reacher said, peering around the locomotive. 4 shooters now, moving, like soldiers coordinated. Loyalty wasn't here, but her hand was tight, ruthless. Reacher needed to break their line, get to the jeep, get out. He fired twice, dropping one shooter, then ran. Hollis behind toward a stack of crates. They two made it barely, bullets chewing wood. Hollis panted, gripping his gun. "We're dead if we stay here." "Not yet," Reacher said. He grabbed a crate, heavy but movable, and shoved it, toppling others, blocking the shooter's path. "Go for the fence, west side. I'll cover." Hollis ran, surprisingly fast for his age, as Reacher laid down fire, keeping the shooters pinned. He followed, diving through a gap in the fence, Hollis waiting in the weeds. The jeep was close, hidden from the warehouse run. They sprinted, piling in, Reacher flooring it as bullets sparked off the hood. The rail yard shrank in the rear view, sirens rising in the distance. Hollis clutched the maps, stolen from the warehouse, his hands shaking. "You got a death wish, Reacher." "Maybe," Reacher said, eyes on the road. "But Loyalty's got one too. They'd bought time, locked the train, but Loyalty was still out there, her deal alive. Hollis was an ally now, reluctant but real, and Redstone was a battlefield." Reacher didn't know the next move, but he knew one thing. He'd fight until the end, and he wasn't alone anymore. Chapter 11. The final Gambit Jack Reacher gunned the jeep through Redstone's backroads, dust swirling in the fading light. Hollis sat shotgun, clutching the stolen maps, his face grim but steady. The rail yard was behind them, the train locked, on its siding, but Loyalty's shooters were still out there, and the $50,000 reward had the town snapping at Reacher's heels. The maps were their edge. Roads, warehouses, a dock, all part of Kane's empire, now run by Loyalty. The train was her move, but Reacher was about to make his own. He pulled off the road, hiding the jeep in a grove of pines, and killed the engine. The air was thick, the kind that sits heavy before a fight. Reacher checked the pistol, 6 rounds left, and the rifle down to 4. Hollis gripped his shotgun, borrowed from the rail yard chaos, his knuckles white. "What now?" he asked, voice low, like he already knew the answer wasn't good. "We hit them where it hurts," Reacher said, spreading the maps on the hood. The red line on the rail yard map was clear, but the dock map caught his eye. 2 states away, marked primary. Clara had said the deal was big, out-of-town money. The train was a piece, but the dock was the prize, where Loyalty's shipment was headed. Stop it there, and Kane's empire, Loyalty's empire, would bleed. Hollis squinted at the map, his finger tracing the dock. "Port's a day's drive. You planning to chase her across state lines?" "Not chase," Reacher said. "Cut her off. She's moving the shipment tonight, but it's not on the train anymore. We locked that down. She'll pivot, send it by road. We find the route, we stop it." Hollis shook his head, half a laugh, half a groan. "You're nuts. Loyalty's got an army. We're 2 guys with maybe a dozen bullets." "Then we make them count," Reacher said, folding the maps. "You know the roads out of Redstone. Where's she likely to send a truck?" Hollis thought, his eyes distant, like he was seeing every mile he'd driven in 30 years. "Highway, 17 West. It's quiet, no cops, connects to the interstate. If she's moving fast, that's her play." Reacher nodded. "We get ahead of her, set a trap. You in?" Hollis looked at him, long and hard, then sighed. "I'm too old for this. But yeah, I'm in. Kane's taken enough from this town. Time someone took something back." They climbed back in the jeep, Reacher driving, Hollis navigating. Highway 17 was 10 miles out, a lonely stretch of asphalt cutting through fields and hills. The sun was gone, stars poking through, and the road was empty. No headlights, no sirens, just the hum of the Jeep and the weight of what was coming. Reacher's mind was clear, focused. Loyalty was the target now, her shipment the key. Kane might be down, but she was the one keeping the machine running. They reached a bend in the highway, a narrow spot flanked by trees, perfect for an ambush. Reacher pulled over, hiding the Jeep in the brush, and they hiked to a rise overlooking the road. Hollis carried the shotgun, Reacher the rifle, their steps quiet on the dirt. They crouched behind a boulder, the highway below a dark ribbon, waiting. Minutes dragged, the night cold, their breath visible. Then headlights, faint, growing brighter. A truck, big, unmarked, moving fast. Behind it, a black SUV like the one from the mansion. Loyalty's convoy, no question. Reacher checked the rifle, steadying it on the boulder. "You take the SUV," he told Hollis. "I'll stop the truck." Hollis nodded, shotgun ready, his face set like stone. The truck roared. Closer, engine loud, tires humming. Reacher aimed for the front tire, exhaled, and fired. The shot cracked, the tire blowing, rubber shredding. The truck swerved, skidding, and crashed into the embankment, horn blaring. The SUV screeched to a stop, doors flying open, 3 men spilling out, guns up. Hollis fired, the shotgun's boom echoing, catching one man in the chest. Reacher dropped another with a rifle shot, clean through the shoulder. The third dove behind the SUV, firing wild, bullets sparking off the boulder. Reacher reloaded his last rounds and signaled Hollis to move. They split, Reacher circling, left, Hollis right, using the trees for cover. The third man shouted into a radio, voice panicked. "It's him! Get back up now!" Reacher didn't wait. He sprinted, closing the gap, and tackled the guy, slamming him into the SUV's hood. A quick punch and the man was out, radio crackling static. Reacher grabbed it, smashing it under his boot. Hollis reached the truck, checking the driver. Slumped alive but dazed, blood on his forehead from the crash. Reacher joined him, prying open the truck's back doors. Crates, like the rail yard, packed with drugs and rifles, but something else. A metal case, locked, heavy. Reacher dragged it out, breaking the lock with a rock. Inside, documents, photos, a USB drive. He stuffed them in his jacket, no time to read. Headlights flashed, more vehicles coming fast. Loyalty's backup or bounty hunters didn't matter. Reacher and Hollis ran for the Jeep, bullets chasing them, snapping branches. They dove in, Reacher flooring it, the Jeep lurching onto a side road, tires screaming. Hollis panted, clutching the shotgun. That was too damn close. "We're not done," Reacher said, eyes on the dark. The case's contents were the real score, proof of the deal, maybe Loyalty's endgame. He pulled over a mile out, checking the documents under the Jeep's dome light. Contracts, names, bank accounts, a shipping manifest for the dock. One name stood out. L. Carver. Loyalty, maybe, or a partner. The USB drive was a mystery. No way to read it now. Hollis watched the road, tense. "What's that worth?" "Everything," Reacher said. "This ties Loyalty to the deal. We get it to the right people. She's finished." "Who's the right people?" Hollis asked, voice sharp. "Cops here are Kane's. Feds? You trust them?" Reacher didn't answer. He didn't trust anyone, not fully, but the truth had a way of breaking through, if you pushed hard enough. "We find a way," he said, starting the jeep again. "First, we lose the tail." They drove, weaving through back roads, the night swallowing them. The convoy was gone, but Redstone wasn't safe, and loyalty wasn't done. Reacher had the proof, but he needed a move, someone to trust, or a place to strike. Hollis was with him, a partner now, not just a tag-along. The final gambit was here, and Reacher was playing to win, no matter the odds. Chapter 12. Showdown, a Dawnjack Reacher, steered the jeep through the pre-dawn gloom, the road a blur of dirt and shadow. Hollis sat beside him, gripping the shotgun, the stolen documents and USB drive tucked inside Reacher's jacket. The truck, ambush had bought them time, but not much. Loyalty's convoy was crippled, her shipment stalled, but she was still out there, and Redstone was a trap snapping shut. The $50,000 reward had turned every corner into a threat, and the name L. Carver on the papers was a ghost. Reacher couldn't pin down Loyalty herself or someone bigger. They ditched the main roads, weaving through forgotten trails Hollis knew from his rail days. The jeep rattled, its engine coughing but holding. Reacher's eyes flicked to the rear view. No headlights, but the feeling of being hunted didn't fade. The documents were gold. Contracts, bank accounts, a manifest, tying Kane's empire to the dock 2 states away. The USB drive was a wild card, unreadable without a computer. But Reacher bet it held the keys to Loyalty's endgame. He needed a safe spot to plan, someone to trust, but trust was thin in a town owned by fear. Hollis broke the silence, voice rough. "Where we headed? Can't keep running forever." "Old mill," Reacher said, keeping his eyes on the road. "You said it's abandoned off the grid. Good place to hole up. Read these papers." Hollis nodded, pointing left. 2 miles past the creek. Nobody goes there since it's shut. Too many ghosts. Reacher didn't care about ghosts, only the living kind with guns. The mill was a risk, but Redstone offered no safe bets. He turned, the jeep bouncing over ruts, the creek glinting under the first light of dawn. The mill loomed ahead, a husk of brick and steel, windows shattered, vines choking the walls. Reacher parked behind a collapsed shed, hiding the jeep, and they moved on foot, weapons ready, the air cold and sharp. Inside, the mill was a tomb. Dusty beams, rusted gears, the faint drip of water somewhere deep. Reacher found a corner with a clear view of the entrance, an old foreman's office with a cracked desk. He spread the documents, Hollis standing guard, shotgun aimed at the door. The papers told a story. Kane's network wasn't just drugs and guns, it was power, sold to the highest bidder. Names of politicians, cops, even a federal agent, all on the take. The manifest listed the dock shipment. Weapons, enough for a small army, headed overseas. The deal Clara heard about wasn't just big, it was global. L. Carver appeared twice, signed on a contract and a bank transfer. No address, no photo, just the name, tied to a shell company. Reacher's gut said it was Loyalty, but doubts nagged. The USB drive sat heavy in his pocket, useless without tech he didn't have. "We need a computer," he said, folding the papers. "Something to read this drive." Hollis snorted. "Nearest one's probably the library. and it's crawling with Cain's eyes. You got a better idea?" Before Reacher could answer, a floorboard creaked, faint but close. He grabbed the pistol, motioning Hollis to cover. They froze, listening. Footsteps, soft, deliberate, coming from the mill's main floor. Not bounty hunters, too quiet, too careful. Reacher slipped to the door, peering through a crack. A shadow moved, tall, lean, dressed in black. Loyalty, or one of her pros. He signaled Hollis, pointing to the back wall. They moved, silent, crouching, behind a pile of crates. The footsteps stopped. Then a voice. Her voice, sharp, female, the one from the warehouse. "I know you're here, Reacher," she called, calm but cold. "You've got my papers. Let's talk." Reacher didn't bite. Talking was a stall, a trap. He peeked over the crates, spotting her near the entrance, alone. A pistol in her hand, no backup in sight. Too easy. She was bait, or she was that good. Either way, Reacher wasn't playing her game. He whispered to Hollis, "Flank her, left side. I'll draw her out." Hollis nodded, slipping away, shotgun low. Reacher stood, stepping into the open, pistol aimed. "Drop it, Carver," he said, using the name, testing her. She froze, eyes narrowing, but didn't drop the gun. "You're quick," she said, voice like ice. "But not quick enough. Cain was the face, not the brain. You think you've won?" "Where's the shipment going?" Reacher asked, stepping closer, keeping her focus. "Who's buying?" She smirked, tilting her head. "Bigger than you, Reacher. You're a speck. Walk away, keep the papers. You can't stop this." Hollis was in position, creeping along the wall, almost there. Reacher kept her talking. "Carver's your name, right? Loyalty. Why hide it?" Her smirk faded just for a second. Then gunfire erupted, not from her, but outside. Windows shattered, bullets ripping through the mill, wood splintering. Reacher dove, dragging Loyalty with him, not to save her, but to keep her close. Hollis shouted, firing the shotgun, a boom that shook the air. Loyalty twisted, elbowing Reacher's jaw, and broke free, sprinting for the back. Reacher scrambled up, head ringing, as 4 men stormed in. Loyalty's pros, rifles blazing. Hollis took cover, firing back, but he was pinned. Reacher ran after Loyalty, dodging bullets, the mill a chaos of noise and dust. She was fast, vanishing through a side door. But Reacher was faster, tackling her in the dirt outside, her gun flying. They rolled, fists flying, her nails raking his face. She was tough, trained, but Reacher was heavier, stronger. He pinned her, knee on her chest, and grabbed her wrists. "Talk," he growled. "The deal, the dock, now." She laughed, blood on her teeth. "You're too late. Train's a decoy. Shipment's already gone. Truck, not rail. Dock's a ghost. You've got nothing." Reacher's gut sank, but he didn't show it. The gunfire inside stopped, sudden, eerie. Hollis stumbled out, bleeding from his arm, shotgun empty. "There, down," he panted. "But more's coming. We gotta go." Reacher hauled Loyalty up, tying her hands with her own belt. "You're coming with us," he said, dragging her to the jeep. She didn't fight, just smirked, like she knew something he didn't. Hollis climbed in, wincing, and Reacher floored. The mill shrinking behind them. Dawn breaking red over the hills, the papers, the drive, Loyalty herself. They were all he had now. The shipment was gone, the dock a lie, but she wasn't. She was the key, and Reacher would break her open, no matter what it took. Redstone was burning, and the showdown was here, raw and final. Chapter 13. The verdict of the Fightjack Reacher sped through the dawn, the jeep's tires chewing gravel as Redstone's outskirts blurred past. Loyalty sat in the back, hands tied, her smirk gone but her eyes sharp, watching for a chance to slip free. Hollis slumped in the front, his arm bleeding through a makeshift bandage, the shotgun empty at his feet. The documents and USB drive were stuffed in Reacher's jacket, their weight a reminder of the stakes. Loyalty's words stung. The train was a decoy, the shipment gone by truck, the dock a lie. Reacher had her, but the deal was slipping through. His fingers and Redstone was still a battlefield, the $50,000 reward driving every gun his way. The mill was miles behind, its gunfire a fading echo. Reacher needed a plan, a place to break Loyalty open, but safe spots were gone. The motel, the diner, even the rail yard. Kane's empire had eyes everywhere, and Loyalty was its new heart. He glanced at her in the rear view. "Where's the truck?" he asked, voice hard. "Talk, or I make you." She laughed low and bitter. "You're out of moves, Reacher. Kill me, you get nothing. Let me go, you're dead. The deal's done." Hollis turned, wincing, his face pale. "She's stalling. We need to ditch her, get those papers to someone clean." "No one's clean in Redstone," Reacher said, eyes on the road. The maps showed a warehouse in the next county, part of Kane's network. It was a long shot, but if the truck was moving, it might stop there or leave a trail. He steered west, toward the county line, the jeep rattling but holding. "We find the truck. We find the truth." Loyalty leaned forward, her voice a hiss. "You're chasing ghosts. The shipment's halfway to the border by now. You've got papers, a drive, useless without me. Make a deal, Reacher. I can make you rich." Reacher didn't answer. Deals were for suckers, and Loyalty was a snake. He needed her alive, talking but not calling shots. Hollis pointed to a side road, narrow, hidden by trees. "Shortcut to the county line. Loses the tail, if we got one." Reacher turned, the jeep lurching over roots. No headlights followed, but the air felt heavy, like trouble was waiting. 10 minutes in, a spike strip gleamed across the road. Crude, metal, meant to kill tires. Reacher swerved, too late. The front tire popped, the jeep fishtailing. He fought the wheel, skidding into a ditch, the engine stalling. "Out!" Reacher shouted, grabbing his pistol. 5 rounds left. Hollis scrambled, dragging the shotgun, useless without shells. Loyalty kicked the door, trying to run, but Reacher yanked her back, tying her to the jeep's frame with a seatbelt. "Stay," he growled, then pulled Hollis behind a tree, scanning the dark. Headlights flared, 2 trucks roaring up, men piling out. 6, maybe 7, rifles and handguns, not locals, but Loyalty's pros, her last line of defense. Reacher's heart was steady, his mind clear. Outnumbered, low on ammo, but he'd been here before. "Stay down," he told Hollis. "Cover when you can." He moved low and fast, using the trees, circling to flank. The men fanned out, shouting their flashlights cutting the dawn. Reacher aimed, one shot, dropping a man with a rifle clean through the leg. The others spun, firing wild, bullets shredding bark. Hollis threw a rock, a desperate distraction, drawing fire to his tree. Reacher used it, sprinting closer, tackling a second man, his pistol cracking the guy's jaw. 2 down, the rest tightened. Pros now, not panicking. A woman's voice, loyalties, shouted from the jeep. "He's there! Left flank!" Reacher cursed, diving as bullets tore the ground. She'd slipped her gag, calling plays. He fired again, grazing a man's arm. 3 rounds left. Hollis crawled, joining him, panting. "We're screwed," he whispered. "Not yet," Reacher said, eyes on the trucks. One had a gas can in the bed, poorly secured. He aimed, fired, and hit it, the can bursting, flames licking the truck. The men shouted, scattering, their line broken. Reacher ran, grabbing a fallen rifle, 10 rounds, and dropped another man, clean shot to the shoulder. 3 left, plus loyalty, still tied but yelling, her voice a beacon for her crew. Reacher closed in, Hollis behind, using the burning truck's smoke for cover. A man lunged, knife gleaming, but Reacher sidestepped, breaking his arm with a twist, dropping him. 2 left, retreating to the second truck, firing blind. Reacher aimed, 1 shot, hitting a tire, stranding them. The last man charged, desperate, a handgun blazing. Reacher tackled him, fist to the temple, and he was out. Silence fell, broken by the crackle of the burning truck and loyalty's curses. Reacher stood, breathing hard, blood on his face, not all his. Hollis limped over, arm worse, but alive. "You're a damn lunatic," he said, almost grinning. Reacher untied loyalty, dragging her to her feet. "Truck's route," he said, pistol at her neck, 1 round left. "Now!" she spat, eyes blazing. "You're too late. It's gone. You've got nothing but me, and I'm worth more alive." Reacher didn't blink. He grabbed the USB drive, held it up. "This says different. I'll find someone to read it. You're done, Carver." Her face twitched, the first crack in her armor. "You don't know what you're starting," she said, voice low. "This is bigger than Redstone, bigger than Kane." "Then I'll finish it," Reacher said. He tied her again, tighter, and tossed her in the jeep's back, now limping but drivable. Hollis climbed in, clutching the documents. "Where to?" he asked, voice fading. "Out of Redstone," Reacher said. "Find a town with real cops or feds, not on the take. Get these papers out." They drove, the county line close, the dawn bright now, red and gold. Sirens wailed, distant, maybe coming, maybe not. Reacher didn't care. He had loyalty, the proof, and Hollis, enough to break Kane's empire, or start the crack. The fight was over for now. The verdict was clear. Reacher stood. Redstone didn't fall, and loyalty's reign was done. What came next, bigger, she'd said, was tomorrow's war.